Arcane. I just finished watching Arcane on Netflix, and I just had to gush about how good it was. There are many shows, I think, that are just over-propelled, overrated by, by people in general. Just shows that are good, but are just generally, put on a pedestal, way above how good they actually are. Arcane is not one of those shows. Arcane is just brilliance in storytelling. Within those 9 episodes, I don't think there was any kind of fluff in those episodes at all. Any part of any episode that just shouldn't have been there. All the characters were amazing. All the storytelling was amazing. Everything about it was just amazing. And now I have to gush for however many minutes this video is about how amazing it is. And also, I do want to talk about some of the storytelling points of Arcane, because I'm writing my own book at the moment. You can check out the link in the description to see the first chapter of that. And there are just so many elements of this story which is just such good writing and such good storytelling. And I've done some reviews in this channel where I've talked about how, the overarching plot of the story, the actual, story of the story is not that good, albeit it is for a video game or some other things. And this is what I mean by good storytelling. But anyway, let's get into it. So I want to focus a little bit on the first episode of Arcane, or rather the scene where Jinx and Vi get into Jace's apartment and steal the hex cores that he has in his apartment, or rather the unstable hex cores. Now, there will be light spoilers, there might be heavy spoilers, I'm not sure. I'll edit that on the screen now, whether there will be spoilers or not, going into this. But yeah, in episode 1, Jinx, Vi, and the other 2 from their team go to Jace's apartment and steal a bunch of his stuff. And this is the inciting incident in the story. Usually in a story, there is an inciting incident very, very early on in the story. And this is what essentially makes the story happen. This is essentially what gives our characters purpose in the story. This is the incident that changes normality from the story, and launches our character into, something that is outside of the normal. And that is them getting into the apartment and stealing Jason's stuff. Now, if this was just a normal theft, if this had just been a normal theft, it would have been fine. Nothing would have happened. Because, yeah, they would have stolen his stuff, but the unstable hex cores would have still been there. Jace wouldn't have been found out by, the authorities or anything. Jace wouldn't have gone up to the council or anything like that. But it's the fact that Jinx, or rather Powder, at the time, found those cores and took them. And not only took them, but also dropped one of them, which ended up exploding and destroying, part of the building. Because it was that explosion that caused Jace to be, interrogated by the authorities of Piltover, brought before the council, and also what gave him the opportunity to really show his work to the council. Because if he hadn't been stolen, if that hadn't have happened, yeah, he might have stabilized the core, but he would never have met Victor. He would never have met anyone on the council. And, yeah, he would have stabilized it, but he's still dealing with unstable technology. It is possible that over time, he might have been able to, introduce this to the world, but it was the fact that he had the backing of one of the councilmen that he was able to really, bring this technology and change Piltover for the better. And all of that was because of what Jinx did in stealing the unstable core crystal. And in a similar fashion, Jinx stealing that unstable hex crystal was basically what started her descent into madness. Because, yeah, she was kind of considered a bit of a jinx by, everyone on her team. But it was that crystal that ended up killing a lot of, Vanda and the other two on her team. Because if we look at that final scene in the third, or one of the final bits in the third episode, it looked like they were going to escape, because all there was the big, soldier that was like jumped up on all that juice, and he was banging at the door, but he wasn't breaking through the door. They were just getting off Vanda's final cuff, and one of the other boys was basically just about breaking through the wall. It really did seem like they were about to escape. They were about to get away. Now, this doesn't mean Silco would have just ended, his, like, whatever he was doing there. He probably would have still gone after Vanda, but I'm not sure it would have gone that far. Like, I'm not sure anything would have happened to it, like all the kids would have died or anything like that. I also forgot to mention it's because of that core crystal that all of the authorities from Piltover were coming down and more forcefully trying to find the kids and more forcefully dealing with stuff that, all led into all this kind of happening. But it was that hex core crystal, that powder sent towards them, that caused the explosion and killed, basically the closest thing she had to a father, two of like her friends who were, I guess, kind of like family to her. I mean, if she's seen them in later episodes, they kind of, I guess, are family at that point, just kind of older brothers who pick on her a bit and everything, but still, brothers that care for her, still family in a way. And yeah, and this is how you do an inciting incident. This is, this one incident just spiraled completely out of control. This one incident was basically the reason for everything happening. And as much as Jace, was doing this for good, he's kind of almost indirectly, because of him, caused all of these issues happening in Piltover. And that is just genius in storytelling. This is just a brilliant inciting incident. One I wish I will be able to write something like that one day. But yeah, and I think that it also makes a very good first act right before we get like a time skip that happens. Just a brilliant first act for the series. Really strong first act. I really thought after watching that could have been something that could have been in the cinema, and it would have been absolutely brilliant. Now, as for the characters, as we know from the beginning, it's kind of almost like V and Powder, and then like Jace as like the other main character, which is really, again, really cool because it shows us big things that are happening in both Piltover and the lower city, the Undercity at the moment. And we get to see both of the worlds, from the Undercity and the Overcity, the lives of people from both cities, and the workings from both of these cities. We needed characters from both of these places, and then spiraling out from these characters, we get introduced to other characters. From Jace, we get to see Caitlin as a kid, who then, after the time skip, grows up and becomes, her own main character. We get introduced to Victor, who becomes, again, his own main character and has his own, like, side stories and everything. And then we also get Mel from Piltover, who then we get introduced to more Noxus characters from that. And from V and Jinx's side, we get introduced to Echo, who everyone knows becomes a big character from the game. Oh, I even forgot of Heimendinger from the later one. The point is, we get introduced to all these characters that have their own goals and own aspirations in this world. They all want different things. They all have, their own identities, and sometimes these identities clash, like with Heimendinger's not wanting to get into like magic technology because he's old enough that he knows how bad this kind of technology can be, and he's afraid of it. But also, because he lives for so long, he doesn't understand why humans have this drive to achieve and, how they want to change the world within their lifetime. And this, even though Jace has this respect for Heimendinger, these ideals of each that each have often clash with one another. And we see these aspects in this story just happen like again and again and again. And it's like no character is really left like untouched, is really just left to just be that kind of character. All of these characters are just given so much love and care and attention. All of them have all of them have like backstories and their own like little side stories and plot developments as the series goes on, and it's brilliant. And one really clear thing of this is Silco himself. When I first met Silco, which was in the first 3 episodes, I didn't think much of him as a villain. I thought of him as like he's going to be kind of a meh kind of villain. And in fact, one of the little, I guess, not really negatives, but nitpicks I had about Act 1 was Silco's kind of past with Vander was not really elaborated on that much. It was told to you just enough that we understand why he has this grudge with Vander and why he chose to take in Jinx, because he sees himself in Jinx, because Vander did to him what Vi did to Jinx, essentially. And it works, right? I just feel like, if Vander was such a kind of stand-up guy in the series, it would have been nice to kind of see a bit more about that. But that's really one of the only nitpicks I have of this entire story. But yeah, we see Silco almost humanized and relatable because he takes in Jinx and treats her like a daughter. And at the, by the end of the show, we see, and I believe what he said in the final episode, that he would basically give up everything for her because she's his daughter and he loves her. And it's, I never expected to care for this villainous character. And that's just a real testament to how good the writing is in the show, how good the characters are in this show, and just how nothing is left untouched. Every time we switch from one character to another character, I wanted to see what this character was going to do. I wanted to see. All of the characters were just so interesting in this show. And yeah, I just really, really look forward to that, to like what we're going to get in season 2 and going forward. But yeah, I think that is most of what I wanted to just discuss with the show, just in terms of just how good the storytelling is, how good the writing is in this show. And I guess a little bit to touch up on the ending of season 1. I absolutely freaking loved that ending. It really, this was really kind of like Powder's story and kind of how she becomes Jinx. And it was done kind of brilliantly, especially with the end where, they're all kind of signing, going over and signing, deciding, yes, we're going to have peace and we're going to sign a peace treaty with this, with the Undercity, and then the Undercity, or Jinx rather, just kind of declaring war on them. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I guess like slight nitpicks for the final episode, and again, very slight. It's so good. Just very slight nitpicks. Things felt in the final episode, it felt like things happened a little fast, almost like there wasn't enough like kind of runtime to get everything in, so things were cut out. Like Silco having a meeting with Jace, but there was never any kind of we never saw Jace receive any letter or any kind of confirmation that Silco wanted this meeting, and there was never any discussion about like guards or anything like that. They just both meet there by themselves, like trusting each other that they would both come alone. Just the final episode, I think, just went from scene to scene to scene very quickly, almost a bit too quickly. And then really the only other, more of a subjective nitpick, I would have definitely liked to have seen a final fight between Vi and Jinx. Just like that kind of like Vi's almost final desperate struggle to bring Jinx back to her side. But again, maybe that is something we will get in season 2. But yeah, that's really all I wanted to say. It was an absolutely brilliant first season, 10 out of 10. Cannot recommend it enough. And yeah, I just had to kind of splurge my love of this series because it was just so good. But anyway, that has been my love letter to Arcane. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. Maybe give a subscription for more videos on just good storytelling, good stories in games, some game reviews, and anime reviews and anime stories here and there. Please check the description below if you want to see the first chapter of the book I am writing. And thank you very much for watching. This has been Matt Etheridge, and I will see you in the next one.